Better King of the Hill marathon today. Anyway, Evil Midget here, episode 3 of From Troll to Contender. My story of Yu-Gi-Oh, whatever the hell you want to call it at this point. Anyway, at this point, I'm still doing Books A Million. You know, this was around, for the hardcore duelists out there, the format that this was around the time that Books A Million was doing tournaments up to when Invasion of Chaos came out. I mean, I saw it all as it was coming out, for that matter. You know, I saw the Yada lot going on. I saw the... That's all I can really remember in terms of competitive play, but still, because I mostly dueled little kids, you know, like kids my age, some kids that were younger than me, but it was a good experience nonetheless. I had a lot of fun. That was a time that even my friend Will would agree that it was a time that we would all remember as just the best time of our lives in terms of just fun. You know, you could just go into Books A Million, sit down, and then duel anybody you wanted. You know, you want a game? Sure, you know. And I mean, like, that's part of, you know, I kind of miss that about the innocent times of being a kid. But eventually, though, I mean, as fun as those times were, you know, they would eventually come to an end. Part of the reason being was because, unfortunately, a kid had a seizure in the middle of one of the, well, I wouldn't even really call it a tournament, but, I mean, they held tournaments there, but everybody was just doing their own thing. Still, though, they attracted such a huge crowd of kids that, I mean, that nobody would move for, like, the paramedics, and it took them forever to get that kid out of there. But I mean, I don't think this is exactly why Books A Million stopped doing them, but this was a good enough reason. The reason why they stopped doing them altogether, though, had to do with the fact that a good friend of mine who worked in the Joe Muggs Coffee at Books A Million, him and his wife would open up a game store. I mean, and by the way, this was his dream. I mean, this was his highest achievement he's ever had in his life, in terms, I guess. That's how my friend Andrew described it anyway. But really, really, really great guy. He honored, I guess you could say he honored all games. In the sense that, let's see here, there was Yu-Gi-Oh! On Saturdays, there was freaking Call of Cthulhu, if anybody remembers that game. They seriously did tournaments of that. Versus system. And of course, Friday Night Magic, but that was a game. Magic was like the biggest game they have there. And also, they even had D&D miniatures like tournaments there. And that was awesome, though. You know, Nate had a good variety. It made him good business. But it was really... You know, it would get difficult after a while, but it was fun, though. I mean, Gamehaven would end up turning into the closest, like, my one true escape in school. Because, like, I remember after school, my mom would drive me to Gamehaven almost immediately, and I'd spend, like, 3 or 4 hours there just having fun, hanging out. Because, I mean, it was practically also like a lounge. Because, I mean, anybody that remembers those days, they also had a couch and a TV set up in there as well as this little library of DVDs that Nate had locked up in a cabinet. Of course, you had to have it locked. Still, though, you know, you could just sit down and enjoy yourself. But that's beside the point, though. The most important thing about Gamehaven for me was that this was where I would grow, like truly start to grow in terms of Yu-Gi-Oh! Because at that point, my deck was like, I guess you could say it was like whatever I would put in it. Like I would, like any booster pack or whatever trades I would get, I would just simply add to it. But so like as Gamehaven, as I would continue to go to Gamehaven, though, my strategy would end up evolving into something that my buddy Carlos would call a piss you off deck. You know, and at that point in Gamehaven, I didn't even really look at myself as like a real contender. I was an obstacle. Mind you, a tough to get through obstacle, but I was just an obstacle. I didn't see myself winning tournaments, but I had fun playing, though. And that's what made sense. And not only that, but this is where I would also meet four guys who would end up becoming, like, probably the closest friends I've ever had, period. I mean, guys would end up becoming brothers to me. Part of the reason why we call our team nowadays the Gamehaven Brotherhood. Or they call themselves a brotherhood. I call us the Gamehaven Brotherhood because that's where we met. That's where we represent. And the reason why we're representing those is because Gamehaven's now closed, but I'll get into that in a future video. Still, though, this is where Gamehaven is where I would start my growth. But until next time, guys, Evil Midget out.
Okay.